coveted Drudge Report link. Oh my gosh, Wayne Madsen. So, and if you go and watch the rest of it, we could pull up the article there where it's at. These reporters really lay into your credibility, you know, claiming 9/11 was an inside job, all these other horrible things that we have intelligence reports on and stand-down orders and other government officials saying it was. Yet these guys went after you. So what was the big deal? What was the big deal?
Well, first of all, you know, for them to call themselves reporters is laughable because one of them is a guy named Michael C. Moynihan. I mean, the guy is a political hack. He tried to break into journalism by going where every aspiring American journalism goes, Stockholm. Where he worked for an NGO called Timbro. Now, this is a free market think tank that's been linked to Karl Rove. Yeah. So this guy's obviously a GOP, neocon hack. He's attacked others. Now, what this was all premised on, this CNN hit piece, now this used to be the show run by Howard Kurtz, who basically got run out of there because he made several attacks. I mean, he's another hack. Howard Kurtz had that show for years. What he didn't advertise was the fact he was married to a Republican operative. This is the problem with the CNNs and the Foxes and the MSNBCs.
The problem with all the mainstream media.
All of them. They don't come clean. They don't say who they're connected with. So the Observer contacted me because I had provided them 2 declassified documents. There was all this talk about the tapping of the transatlantic 14 cable that goes from Germany and Denmark down to the Netherlands and France over to Cornwall in England, and then goes to Tuckerton, New Jersey, and how Edward Snowden said, well, you know, they're doing metadata collection off of this cable, and he came out with the name of the cover term, tempora, which was new. We didn't know what that was called.
Well, we knew it was going on back in the day.
Oh, absolutely. And on February 4, 2009, I talked about how the NSA was using metadata collection to get emails, which is exactly what he said was going on with the cable. I provided the Observer with 2 declassified documents. One that shows definitely that the NSA has third parties. We know who the second parties are. Right. That's the English-speaking club. That's the U.S.'s first party, the second party, Canada, UK, Australia, and New Zealand. Third parties are mostly NATO allies, non-English-speaking countries. And I showed the Observer these documents. One document showing there were third parties. It was actually titled Partners and Targets. So this gets into the issue about, yes, France and Germany are partners, but they're also targets. Right. And the other one I showed him was the SIGINT exchange descriptors used for each of these countries. And the different countries have different descriptors. I think Denmark is called Dynamo. That's the cover term. NSA is full of these cover terms, by the way. In 2005, I provided a list of over 400 of them. Some of them we've seen on Snowden's list. Some of them are new. It came up since. So a lot of this was known. The Daily Beast guys, Moynihan and this guy Josh Rogan and this guy John Avlon, we had a picture of that. Noted neocons, by the way. Right. They were part of this small group. They get on Twitter, they get on Facebook, they get on all this social, and they attack people. Right. One of the guys runs this website called Little Green Footballs. This guy Charles Johnson. Apparently, he's some ex-band member with Chicago. You know, a lot of these guys are kind of fried, brain-fried former band people who, you know, can't succeed in the music business anymore, and they become political pundits. I don't recommend that, especially if you got a history of heavy drug use, and your brain is basically gone. We got enough brain-dead politicians without having pundits come along out of the rock.
Yeah, they like to party together.
Yeah, right. Yeah. And so what happened was they piled on the Observer, and the Guardian ran it too. That's a sister paper of the Observer. They made it sound like it was a big group of people upset that they used me as a source, and then you get all the crackpot allegations, 9/11 truther. And they went back and they grabbed everything on the internet. And they said that first of all, they lied. They said the Observer grabbed the information from a website run by Simon Davies, who is a former Director General of Privacy International, who I worked with on this anti-NSA stuff back in the late 90s. So, you know, this was all known what was going on. The European Union Parliament had an investigation, which we all participated in helping them conduct that investigation of NSA surveillance. But they went back and found everything I had written, and they ran this attack piece that was on CNN, and this was basically the same small group of people, the same ilk that went after Dan Rather with the Texas Air National Guard story.
Which turned out to be true as well.
True.
Yeah.
The documents weren't the original, but the information was absolutely correct. Mm-hmm. And also they attacked poor 89, she was 89 at the time.
Let me do the famous Alex Jones interrupt. Only I can. No. I'm sitting there watching in the control room down the news, doing a great job. And over here, I just want to point out, because you'll never toot your own horn, that like 2 weeks after you come on my show, everything you said comes out. Tapping the cable, Europe working with them, using Europeans to spy on us, we spy on them.
Right.
Which, as you know, that was all in stuff you put out 10, 15 years ago. That was all in the former producer for Nightline, James Bamford's Body of Secrets.
It was in his books.
So when you're informed, you know these shows are lying.
Right.
I mean, it's not like I'm just believing Wayne Madsen.
Right.
And you're the guy that kept bringing out a decade ago all the big whistleblowers. I mean, you're the guy that's been credited with this, and they just go, oh, he's a crackpot, and use a wrong name on CNN. I believe on purpose so that people can't search and find it.
Right, Michael Madsen, they came out and said.
Yeah, Michael Madsen.
Michael Madsen, the actor, yeah, right.
I mean, now you're, you know, Michael Jackson. You know, the whole point is that this is big. So I just had to come in and say that. Did a great job.
No, you're exactly right.
Did.
Yeah, you're exactly right. I mean, Wayne Madsen was providing all this stuff well before Edward Snowden was. And all Edward Snowden did was give us names to these things that we knew were going on.
I'm like the pet dwarf now. Anyways, hey, this is real TV, teleprompter free. Are there any teleprompters in the studio?
There are none. I see no teleprompters now. But when you're at CNN, they're all over the place.
Hey,
so those clowns, Avalon and the other Moynihan and Rogan, all there were teleprompters
and then
present.
that allows, for those that don't know, the big guys upstairs to write the same script. That's why the nightly news, ABC, CBS, NBC, it's all the same order, same thing, same Prozac ads in between.
I just watched, Jones, I just watched this, one of the entries for the Paul Revere contest came out, and this guy just took these clips from all different news agencies, and they're saying the exact same thing about the Easter Bunny. It's crazy. You would not believe it. And he took the time and
Easter Bunny?
About how the Easter Bunny's not going to have a spring in his step. It's worded exactly every news agency, and it's all over. He's like 10 of them.
It's
not like two. It's not like two of it. It's like 15. Yeah. And then he goes to another.
What it does is even if it's fluff.
Yeah.
That's the move to that. It allows them to totally control and put out one Borg message. Listen, get back to the great interview. I'm out there in the control room watching this with everybody else out there on PrisonPlanet.tv.
All right.
Wayne, it's always great having you in town. This guy, by the way, is a riot in person.
Oh, yeah. No, he's got some great jokes.
Rodney Dangerfield.
Some great jokes. I like the go.
The NSA doesn't think I'm much of a comedy act. But.
Right. Well, you know, going back to the newly leaked NSA slide that shows tapping, the undersea phone cable, you go into this, they were talking about this stuff even before 9/11, how there was a sub out there, and they'd figure out a way to actually go into these fiber optic lines without letting people know about it. But this is all old news. I mean, all Snowden did was just provide a cover term.
He provided some new slides, some new information to show that this was an ongoing program.
Right.
It never stopped. It had been modernized.
Yeah.
He did give us that. And the biggest thing is how NSA is now cooperating with all these internet service providers, the Yahoos, the Microsofts, the Skypes, Google, you name it. Mm-hmm. So we knew that too, but he showed us the slides.
He gave us the dates. He gave us everything. And on the way in, you were in our green room over there, and you turned on your computer, and suddenly you got the vicious Microsoft update. And what happened?
My hard disk was wiped clean. It went back to factory settings. Yeah. Nothing that I did. This started.
They're not tracking you, Wayne.
No. And we just have in the Guardian today the latest article by Greenwald and the others about how NSA and Microsoft are in cahoots with Skype getting into encrypted files, encrypted communications. We've known that for a long time, too, because Microsoft for some years has had an office across Baltimore Washington Parkway from NSA headquarters in the
How convenient.
in the business park over there. Yeah, they're on call 24 hours a day. I got that from internal people at NSA.
And you said that years ago.
I did.
And I mean, now they admit that all the telecoms are moving them indoors with them. But that's what the 4 or 5 years ago, the whistleblower in San Francisco at AT&T.
Mark Klein said that about the closet in the
secret rooms.
And then there were others all around the country that Jim Bamford highlighted later in his book. So we've known a lot of this. You know, Snowden, at least because of the cloak and dagger aspect of his story, you know, flying from Hawaii to Hong Kong, and we didn't know who he was, and then he says, I'm Ed Snowden, I worked at Booz Allen.
Seems very scripted.
Yeah, but, you know, I mean, maybe it was done that way to get the attention of the media, because we know what the media goes after. They go after these James Bond type situations. Otherwise, if it's a poor guy like Klein, who was just he was an AT&T technician. Oh, yeah, you know, he's the guy, you know, right.
No, you got to add a little element to it. You know, Greenwald, I think, did a good job at, like, doling out the information, and then, like, now we're going to show you who he is. Exactly. And that was good, but it was stuff we had been talking about for years. And you know, and then the information came out after they said you were totally wrong. You know, Snowden claims Germany in bed with the NSA. Here's one. New NSA leaks show how U.S. is bugging its European allies. That's The Guardian. U.S. and EU shrug off Edward Snowden's NSA revelations to resume the big trade talk, which they want to do to basically create, you know, the next cadre of the New World Order, the next level of it, just going in to, you know, now we're going to do free trade areas everywhere. And it's ridiculous that all this stuff comes out. You know, we've been saying it for years. Nobody pays any attention, you know, when the alternative media does it. It's only when the mainstream media does it, then it's allowed to be talked about all of a sudden. But you're still, you know, you may be a conspiracy theorist if you want to talk about Michael Hastings and his, you know, interesting death.
Absolutely. So, I mean, this is just so typical. CNN, nobody really watches these cable news networks anymore. Look, on the weekends, they don't even run news unless there's a plane crash, and then they have, the B list of anchors on there screwing everything up, like they did with the Asiana plane crash in San Francisco. I mean, but normally, what do the cable news networks run on the weekends? Oh, lock-up programs, repeat reruns. I mean, it's not even news. Now you get
about how drugs are good for you,
yeah, all this garbage, and they're not doing news. And then they got pundits when there is a late breaking story, a breaking story. They'll have pundits on there, like this guy that took over from Ed Schultz on MSNBC. This Chris Hayes guy. He's a pundit. Rachel Maddow's a pundit, and then they're trying to do reporting of news, plane crashes. They're not qualified to do this. Yes, Cronkite was qualified to do that. Rather was qualified to do that, but these people don't exist. They've been replaced by these. I don't know what the heck they are.
Well, Rachel Maddow's qualified to get people up into a racial frenzy, especially over this Trayvon Martin thing, which it came out earlier this week that the Justice Department was actually funding some of these protests. They were actually sending money down to actually fund protests for people to just go out and just exude more racial hatred.
Let's take a local story, a local Florida story. Should be the Orlando market story, because Sanford is in the Orlando market.
How many people?
Right.
Especially in Chicago.
Let's leave it. Let's leave it in Orlando. No, but somebody in New York and somebody in L.A. decide, well, we're going to make this a national story. This is nonsense. These stories never went national before these cable news networks decided we can take these isolated stories and make a big deal out of it. And it started with O.J. and some of these other cases, but these are local stories. Nobody should care around the country about what happens in a case of a shooting in Sanford, Florida. I mean, there's probably people in Orlando that could care less about what happens in Sanford, Florida, let alone somebody who lives in, say, Seattle.
But then the president comments on it, and suddenly it becomes a national issue.
Right, exactly. Yeah, Obama will comment. By the way, Obama he did this with Bradley Manning. He said, you know, he's guilty of, you know, this terrible espionage. He's not allowed to say that as a chief executive. What constitutional law did this man teach? And now he said that about Snowden. He said, you know, Snowden, you know, he should keep his mouth shut. He doesn't know how to keep his mouth shut. He opens it when, you know, he's going to get maximum attention, but he's also not giving, he didn't give Bradley Manning or Edward Snowden any sort of due process by, you know, Nixon got in trouble, Richard Nixon, when he said, you know, Charles Manson's guilty. Manson held that paper up in the courtroom and said, Manson guilty, Nixon says. They almost had a mistrial for the guy, you know, the guy that was charged with the Sharon Tate, you know, and other murders.
Well, what other kind of dirty tricks do these guys do to just, you know, and especially in the false flag realm? What do you see coming up down the pike?
Well, I mean, false flags, they say that's a conspiracy theory. You know, these don't exist. I mean, of course these exist. These have existed through history. The latest one, and I merely speculated because of all the interest in the XL Keystone pipeline, you know, and there's a lot of money in Canada that wants to push for that. The Prime Minister, Stephen Harper, is pushing for it. He's from Alberta, where the tar sands are located. And then, you know, this train breaks loose and wipes out 60-some people are vaporized.
They can't find them.
In Le Magentic in Quebec, near the Maine border. And, you know, I said, you know, I wouldn't be surprised if, you know, Blackwater was hired by Halliburton, you know, one of the pipeline companies, to do that. Because right afterwards we heard people who are pushing the pipeline say, yeah, you see, this is a pipeline. You wouldn't have this because the trains wouldn't be coming through your towns with the, you know, this deadly cargo of fuel oil that could cause this. So that's why we need the pipeline. I said, isn't that convenient that they're coming out and saying that now? And that now we know that the Canadian police have that under investigation as a potential industrial sabotage criminal act.
They said somebody messed with the brakes.
Absolutely.
So now they're looking at it like that.
So here we go.
Yeah.
Here we go. A conspiracy theory? Then the RCMP must be into conspiracies.
What about Michael Hastings' death? I mean, the engine goes in a different direction, the car rolls into a tree.
Right. You know, I mean, the engine block is found, what, 50 yards from the autumn. They
won't release the police report?
They never do in these cases.
The body?
I've covered a lot of cases like this in Washington where you either don't get the police report or you gotta, you know, you gotta know somebody on the inside that'll leak it to you. I mean, Marvin Bush, who was George W. Bush's brother, his maid, Bertha Champagne, was run over by her own SUV at Marvin Bush's home in Alexandria, Virginia, and they withheld that police report. I managed to get it, and they had old Marvin listed as witness, suspect, or other. You know, I mean, he was the only one present at the home at the time when this woman's car somehow went into reverse gear and ran over her.
Right.
And there was a videotape mentioned that she had a videotape.
And who knows what she witnessed.
What was that videotape? That was in the police report. No wonder they didn't want that release.
Somebody would ask a question and they had to find it.
Right.
Yeah, there we go. Police firefighters ordered not to speak about Michael Hastings' crash. And it's just cover up after cover up. But now we're catching them every time they do something. We're able to just come back and say, oh, we caught you on that one. Yeah. Just like when these Daily Beast reporters came after you, we're like 2 days later, everything comes out that you said.
Yeah, well, you know, I mean, as I said, there were only probably about 6 people involved in this screed against the Daily Observer. Now, it's interesting. The big German newspaper Die Welt also had it up on the front page, and then they broke that link. They put it back up in its original form, a picture of Angela Merkel with my quote underneath in German saying, she's like the chief inspector in Casablanca that walks into Rick's Cafe and says, I'm shocked to find gambling in this establishment, because she said she didn't know that this espionage, this surveillance was going on. She's part of it. Of course she's part of it. So they put it back up, and now they say she's in political trouble now in Germany. But well,
that's how they always do it. Until it comes out, they just lie, and then you go, well, here's the documents.
Absolutely.
Well, conspiracy theorist, you're looking at the documents.
Absolutely.
I got another one for you. How about the younger Zarnev brother comes into court. He looks like he's been beaten more. He's in cast in his hands now, and he says, I'm not guilty.
Yeah, and it also comes out that his brother, who, you know, there's a lot of video evidence that showed that his brother was not run over by a car, that it looked like the guy was naked.
Yeah.
You know, they stripped him because they were...
And walked him into a car.
Yeah.
His aunt said that was him.
And now it's come out from Boston law enforcement that he was a known drug dealer. Drug dealer, jihadist, Al-Qaeda? Wait a minute, something
Sounds
doesn't...
like he's got inside connections.
Yeah, something doesn't... And then Uncle Ruslan, of course, is tied up with Graham Fuller, a longtime CIA agent. Uncle Ruslan is forgotten about. I immediately smelled a rat with that when they had the helicopters in Washington flying over Uncle Ruslan's house in Montgomery County. I said, hey, Uncle Ruslan's got some money.
Yeah.
I mean, I mean, this guy's not a poor guy.
Some side deals.
And you look into his background. He was heading up all these CIA-connected nonprofit organizations, basically CIA giving weapons to the Chechens fighting the Russian government.
Right, and it's easy to skim a little off the top there and
buy a nice big $350,000 home in suburban Washington, D.C.
Right, and now earlier also you were talking about where Edward Snowden may have worked, and there's this hub that people don't talk about. It's an NSA CIA kind of collusion center. Talk about that. I speculated,
it's informed speculation, but when they talked about him being assigned to the U.S. mission to the UN organizations in Geneva, Switzerland, and that he got this information about some Swiss guy was set up a banker by the CIA and a DWI, and they, got information. I said, wait a minute. The only place the Swiss Foreign Ministry said yes, he was assigned to the U.S. Embassy, so that was true. Mm-hmm. I said he had to have been with this group called the Special Collections Service. It's a hybrid organization. It's CIA and NSA, and they go in and put bugs in embassies. And we again knew about this from a book written by Mike Frost, who worked for the Canadian NSA, the Communication Security Establishment Canada, wrote a book called Spy World back in the mid-'90s, where he explained all this about how when NSA couldn't bug somebody in the United States, they'd call the Canadians down to do it for them, to get around the FISA. Mm-hmm. Margaret Thatcher got the Canadians to come over and do the same thing on her own cabinet ministers. So we knew about these. We knew the code words, oratory, all these code names came out in his book. But I figured Snowden's bringing this back up to date about this organization. It's not even well known in NSA. It's called F6 in NSA. Not everybody in NSA has clearance or access for that project. But this is what it does. So, and later, what does Snowden do? He comes out and says, yes, Special Collection Services are in 65 U.S. embassies and missions around the world doing foreign satellite interception. Of course, the Latin Americans were mentioned in particular. They're up in arms about this now. But, it's New Delhi and other capitals.
Well, we got to keep an eye on our petty dictators that we implant.
Exactly. But, it came out we're also spying on our so-called allies.
Right.
But we've been doing that for years. And the leaders of those countries know what's going on because we give them some of this intelligence so they can use it against their political adversaries. This is why Angela Merkel's in trouble. But look, the Social Democrats, they get in there, they're going to do the same thing. We're going to give them the intelligence on the Christian, it's the elites. Now, General Keith Alexander, this is not well known. He didn't go to the Bilderberg meeting outside of London this year, but the last 5 he was present at Bilderberg. What is the head of the NSA and the U.S. Cyber Command now? He wears 2 hats. What's he doing at Bilderberg?
Running intercept operations.
They're going after Snowden for releasing slides that say no foreign, which means no foreign dissemination. We've got the head of NSA over there talking to the leading industrialists in Europe.
And all their Secret Service agents and their heads of security.
Exactly.
And it's just a big
off the record, all this off-the-record stuff. And this year, Alexander didn't go, but the CEO of this company, Palantir, went there.
Right.
One of the companies involved with the sock puppet operations, right? A company that was involved with H.B. Gary Federal and going after Glenn Greenwald when he was writing about the Bank of America. So we can see what's going on here. Greenwald is being attacked by the same people that attacked me on that CNN Reliable Sources program. Right. The same people that attacked poor Helen Thomas when she was caught by a guy with a hidden camera inside the White House grounds. How do you get a hidden camera inside the White House grounds? You got to go through Secret Service. So yeah, people, journalists like Dan Rather, Helen Thomas, Glenn Greenwald, and I'm not on the same level. I won't say that I am, but I got set up by these clowns with reliable sources. Right. But, let them do what they want, because I went back to 2000, and right there in the CNN archives is I'm quoted talking about NSA eavesdropping on email.
Yeah. In 2000.
In 2000.
Right. And that came out in this Washington's blog article, too. They list a bunch of old sources from 2004, the mid-1990s. They were talking about the special submarines. And then there's even a quote from Lieutenant General Hayden, who's the NSA chief at the time. Computing power will allow it to process greater masses of data, which he says hopes will eventually allow a single analyst to extract wisdom from vast varieties of raw information. That's where we're at now.
The Utah Data Center,
right,
NSA's
exactly.
big 17, the size of 17 football fields, can process a yottabyte of data. That's so many zeros. Yeah. You can't even figure it out.
It's a lot of G rates.
Exactly. So this is where Hayden always wanted to go with this, right. And this is NSA. Even when I was at NSA in the 80s, they used a term that shocked me. They said they wanted total hearability for everything in the world. Remember, this is when they were intercepting radio, phone calls. Mm-hmm. This is before the World Wide Web. We did have the internet, but the hearability, they thought in terms of listening.
What do you think the little cell phones are that you're carrying around?
Exactly. They wanted total hearability. That's what their goal was in the 1980s. And I said, they want to hear everything. And they said, yeah, they do.
That's in 2009, we were reporting about a program called Roving Bug, where the feds were actually turning on mics of gangsters so they could listen in on the phone even if it was powered off.
Oh, absolutely.
And it was happening before that.
Absolutely. Sure. And the GPS that's in cell phones today, somebody in NSA told me, look, even if you take the battery out, a lot of people take the batteries out of their phones, there's still enough juice in powering that chip, that GPS, that chip, that locator chip, that 3 passes by a satellite, they can still pick up your location. Oh, they can geolocate you.
Totally ridiculous. Where are we going from here? When will the scandal get big enough to either bring down this NSA apparatus that's going on, or even bring down the Obama administration?
Well, I mean, the problem is, Edward Snowden is the focus. People are more focused on him than they are on the information he's released. And I don't think he obviously wants to be the center of attention. I mean, every time a plane leaves Moscow, Sheremetyevo Airport now, they think he's on it if it's heading down towards Latin America. Right. So
where in the world is Edward Snowden?
I know. So this is the problem with the focus on him. But I have to say, Nixon did make his disagreement with Daniel Ellsberg, who released the Pentagon Papers. Mm-hmm. He made it somewhat personal, and having his plumber's team burglarize Dan Ellsberg's psychiatrist's office. But Nixon dealt with the Gordon Liddies, and so there was like something in between. Nixon wanted to get all the leakers. Right. Yeah, Ellsberg one of them. But Obama has really personalized this with Snowden, like he did with Bradley Manning. And Obama's coming off looking like a South Side Chicago thug going after this kind of geeky kid from the Baltimore suburbs. Mm-hmm. And I think people are now recognizing Snowden is the underdog here, and he's got support all over the world, from Latin America, mm-hmm. from Africa, from the Middle East, from Europe, from Eastern Europe, from Asia. And Obama's, he was popular in some of these countries. His popularity has sank.
Well, it sucks. People realize the fraud.
Right. And
that's why it's not going to be hard to make the Obama deception, too.
Yeah.
All the information's out there. He stuck his foot in his mouth. He's killing people with drones, left and right children. He's going into Africa. I mean, we have troops in probably at least 20 different countries and areas in Africa.
Right,
I mean, it's ridiculous.
Right, and he's threatening countries with sanctions if they help Snowden. He's got, the forcing down of the Bolivian president's airplane in Austria. One country after another closed its airspace because the U.S. put pressure on them. I mean, this is a total violation of international law. and and threatening countries like Iceland that was considering giving him asylum, and now Ireland has said we're not going to execute that Interpol arrest warrant. The High Court of Ireland said that. All he does is respond like personally. Him and Kerry. Kerry, of course, all during this whole thing with the Egyptian coup, and Snowden, he's out sailing, just like he was in 2004. A guy who worked for John Kerry in that campaign said if John Kerry was more interested in becoming president than he was about his hair coif, he might have actually made it into the White House. So, this is what we have. This is the elites, the oligarchs. We talk about them all the time.
Well, what do you think is next? What do you think we're going to have else come out of Edward Snowden's mouth, or what is he going to leak that is going to surprise people? Will they just, what do you think is going to be the big shoe to drop?
He's got a lot of PowerPoint slides, and I don't know whether they've actually, given us all the good stuff has come out. That may be the case. I noticed like the last revelation was about NSA being able to intercept video Skype and encrypted communications using Skype and Microsoft products. We're getting into the more technical stuff now, stuff we've already also known about. We've known them.
Yeah, we know Skype has been on the list.
The important stuff, the metadata and all this capturing email. I think we're probably now into the more mundane NSA programs. I think we've heard the biggest revelations already.
Okay. He
probably has other stuff, but just looking at, I think we peaked in the revelations, and now we're getting down to the technical stuff.
Okay. Well, what's going on your plate? What are you investigating right now?
Well, I had to deal with this attack by these neocons, but the mere fact that they came out of the closet and identified themselves. One of them is a guy named Professor John Schindler at the U.S. Naval War College. He was sending Twitter message after Twitter message out, attacking the Observer, the Guardian, Greenwald. He's a U.S. government employee.
Right.
He's tied in with people we know are part of this Karl Rove operation. He's tied up with people that are known neocons. There's something called the Hatch Act. You cannot use your title. He says, I'm a professor at the U.S. Naval War College. That's his official government title. I have contacted the War College. I've complained about this. I haven't heard nothing back. I go back and look at, I got a certificate in international relations from the War College when I was in the Navy in 1983. It was, you didn't hear much about the Naval War College, Newport, Rhode Island, But going back, it turns out when I'm focusing on the War College, it is a neocon bevy up there in Rhode Island. They had Laurie Milroy as one of their associate professors. She's the one who said that Saddam Hussein was behind the 1993 World Trade Center bombing. Even Peter Bergen with CNN said she was a crackpot with that theory.
Right, because we know it was the FBI.
And so we got this guy Barnett. He's another guy. He's the one who came out with this map that the U.S. will control the world in the 21st century. All this neocon drivel and claptrap.
A new Pearl Harbor
coming out of the Naval War College. So I'm glad the Naval War College has exposed themselves by not cracking down on the political activism and the violation of the Hatch Act at a Navy college, part of the United States Navy. But, are we going to see anybody from, Chuck Hagel, is he going to do anything? I doubt it, because he made his deal with the devil when he, was confirmed by the Senate. Close vote, but he got in there. So, these people aren't going to enforce the law. Why should they enforce the Hatch Act when they're not even enforcing the Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Act?
Right, or even the Logan Act, where the officials aren't supposed to get together from other countries in secret meetings.
Like General Alexander going to 5 Bilderberg meetings.
Every year, exactly. It happens in Bilderberg, and we're finally starting to really blow that out. I mean, this last Bilderberg was amazing. Over almost 4,000 people went there to protest. I mean, that's big.
That is big.
That's big. And we're getting the regular
you
media
think that most
to
people,
report on it.
you know, there were only a handful of people you go in there and try to find out what was going on.
Right. Hey, let's end with a couple spy stories. You were telling us some stories about Hayden, how you've kind of been his nemesis for years, and he sees you at events and whatnot.
Yeah, well, back when there were whistleblowers. And by the way, one of the things I hear about from every journalist in Washington, for the New York Times and mainstream media, everybody's afraid to talk. You know, Obama ordering spying on the Associated Press, over 100 reporters and journalists, the guy Rosen from Fox News. Everyone's afraid to talk. No sources have dried up. They've chilled. It's really cold in Washington when it comes to sources now. And back when I had a lot of sources at NSA coming forward, especially after 9/11. Hayden was a director, and I heard through the grapevine that Hayden wanted to be briefed on my activities once a week for his daily briefing in the morning, and his deputy Bill Black had to get a daily briefing. So Hayden had a weekly briefing. Bill Black had a daily briefing on what I was doing. Obviously, my phones were tapped.
Right.
I was told I was in this database called First Fruits, which spied on every journalist who covered NSA extensively. And so I saw General Hayden at a White House Correspondents' Dinner. Some people were talking, and then all of a sudden he turned around, who's standing next to me but General Hayden? And I said, you know, small talk. He says, he had retired. I says, well, how's retirement life treating you, General? He said, oh, pretty good, pretty good. You know, and I said, well, I guess I kept you, I caused you a couple sleepless nights. He says, oh, well, you know, it's all part of this old Washington thing, you know, like it's all a big game here. It's a big game. Yeah, well, you know, being spied on to me isn't a game.
Right.
And the next time I saw him, he had left, of course, he had left NSA, and then he was over there at the CIA as director. And there was a big, I went to an Association for Intelligence Officers thing, and here is Hayden in the auditorium in NSA, and I'm standing there because I'm attending this thing, and he spots me, and his head turned red. And he walked by, he was with some other guy, and he says, be careful, we're on treacherous ground right now. Treacherous ground. So, yeah, I've been kind of a pain to Hayden over the years. But, you know, people were coming forward at NSA and telling me how he was involved in all these projects. There were billions of dollars being wasted, groundbreaker, trailblazer. And these were all the projects that led to what Snowden is revealing today.
And they're still wasting money to this day.
Total waste of money.
You know, they're saying, I think just to get to that undersea cable and tap it, $2 billion a year.
Yeah.
I mean, ridiculous.
Yeah, so, you know, you see SAIC and Booz Allen and these other companies just making lots and lots of money.
Our money that they're spending.
Our taxpayers' money. Yeah. It's incredible.
Wow. Well, you can, your website, the Madsen Report, WayneMadsenReport.com. Yeah, that's where people can find out. It's a subscription service where they can get this intel. You were writing stuff about the underwear bomber when that came out, too. I remember when that was one of the first big false flags when I started at InfoWars. I was working on a movie, and that came out, and I'm like, we got to start pulling this information.
He was allowed on that plane, that Northwest plane, with the same kind of refugee document that Ed Snowden got from the Ecuadorian consul in London that allowed him to travel to Moscow after the U.S. revoked his passport. This Mutalib guy from Nigeria was allowed on the plane to Detroit with a refugee he did not have a passport.
And
how does that happen?
And with a bunk bomb that couldn't have worked no matter what.
Oh, right, of course.
Yeah, that's how they do it. Well, Wayne, thanks for stopping by. And you're going to be on tomorrow on the Alex Jones Show. And then we're going to sit down and do a really in-depth interview with you for the Obama deception and really get the goods out. Obama Deception 2, which will be coming out in, I think, early November. And so that's going to be, looking forward to having you on that, being part of the crew. We got a lot of great interviews, and you're really going to top it off and really bring it together because, you know, you're the original Edward Snowden. I mean, giving us the goods at least, and you know, in our eyes. And,
well, at least I'm not on. I'm not eating pizza in Sheremetyevo Airport in Moscow.
There you go. It is better to be in Austin, Texas at this time.